I can't even remember. It was like minutes within the set, maybe 20 minutes within the set. Honestly, it could have been an hour, but it felt like 2 minutes into the set, the whole crowd said, wow.
But when we were starting out, man, nobody wanted to touch us.
Yeah.
People were like, Afro House?
Yeah.
What? DJ Yanni, DJ Sav. A lot of you know us collectively as Flagrant Drvms. You're probably watching this on our YouTube channel or our Instagram or TikTok, however you're watching this. But a lot of people have no idea who we are individually prior to this project. So we thought it would be cool.
Surprisingly, a lot of people.
Yeah, well, you know what it is, Yanni? Some people are just, nowadays, they take things for face value. So they see something and they're like, okay, this is a cool project. I'm gonna invest my time and energy into this.
Yeah.
I don't really think people have the will or the I don't know, the time to go and do research. Like, who are these guys?
Honestly, too, like
separately.
I think we're so used to having our own channels. Obviously, with you, Fight Club, and then me, DJ Yanni, having our own brands outside of Flagrant. And I think this past year was our first year that we actually went viral on a bunch of different like videos for Flagrant. So a lot of people discovered our channels through Flagrant, not even knowing that there was a whole nother like other brands attached to you and me.
For sure. And that's what we want to talk about. We want to dive in, do a deep dive into our past, into our history, into the DJ world and film world.
Yes, because like always, he's a filmmaker.
I let that be known to Yanni.
Doesn't let me forget
any
it.
chance I get. But Yanni, let's not forget, I'm a filmmaker. I want to start off with you, DJ Yanni.
Okay.
Where did your love for DJing come from? Like, was there a specific day, specific time? Do you remember?
Actually was, man. When I was younger, I would say about 9-10 years old, I had an older cousin. His name was Hector Jacino. And he was like the cool cousin, the cool older cousin. And for like Christmases and like different holidays, Thanksgiving, we used to all like gather up around my aunt's house where he used to live at. And the first time I seen a DJ setup in front of me was his. And he had Technics 1200s, he had the vinyl, he was DJing. And
Old school.
I was just in awe, like, whoa, this is dope. You know, I was like 8-9 years old. And from then, at that time, I was living in Delaware at the time. That's where I went to school before I moved back to New York. I was born in New York, and then I ended up moving back to New York when I was like 18, 19. But anyway, at that time, the radio was popping, like Philadelphia radio. So it was like DJ Rand, Doc B, Cosmic Kev, and those guys were like, especially Cosmic Kev was like a turntablist. That's the first time I heard turntablism on the radio. And from there I got into like turntablism, like DJ Qbert, the Scratch Pickles, you know, all those guys from the West Coast, DJ Revolution, Spinback from New York, all those guys, and like the whole DMC stuff. So that's when I got fascinated to the technical aspect of it, right? So I used to hear the guys on the radio do some stuff and mixing, and then I would hear like these guys do, or see, like I used to have like VHS tapes of these DJs performing live, battling. I was like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. Then eventually I started battling. My first gig though, before like we used to do like a friend of mine, DJ Tony B. We used to do weddings and sweet 16s and sweet 15s and stuff like that.
So what was your official DJ gig?
And
where was it?
Besides that, it was at a roller rink. It was called Ellesmere Skating Rink.
Right.
And that's when they like gave me the reins. That was the first time I ever DJed for like a big crowd of people. And I was nervous. I was nervous. I remember, because this happened, I would say milestones in my life. This moment, meaning like this thing where I'm about to play in front of thousands of people. And I played in front of Madison Square Garden. I played at the Barclays. I played at festivals all over the world. And in my earlier career, even when the first time I touched the radio airwaves, there was this moment where I'm like, I'm about to put the needle on the record, like literally for the first song, and my hand is like shaking. I'm like, what the fuck, bro? I'm sitting here like, to the point I have to hold my hand and then put the needle on the record, and then the same shit happened on that first day at the skating ring. I put the needle on the record, and then boom, it was like everything went away.
It just flowed.
And then it just flowed. And then
What did you play? Do you remember?
What did I play? At the skating ring was probably like, at that time, it was like freestyle music, some house stuff, some little bit of hip hop. But the skating ring was all about like freestyle. And, like,
But when you first started learning how to DJ and scratching, what did you primarily focus on? Like, was it hip hop?
It was a little bit of everything, but hip hop was the main thing. I remember being in the car with my father at the time, and he used to tell me, like, we used to listen to the radio. He'd be like, "Yo, this is not original music." And I'm like, "What do you mean? This is Biggie. This is Tupac. This is whoever was on the radio." He was like,
Talking about
"No,
the
it's
samples.
not." He was like, "No, it's not." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And then we go back home, and he had his own vinyl collection. He took out. I remember. I forget this one particular time, but he did it a few times, like Led Zeppelin, Steely Dan. I remember the one time he took out Beat Nuts sample. It was I forget the name of the song, but it was Steely Dan. Like fuck, what's the name of that song? New York.
I'm trying to think.
We'll
look it up. We'll look it up.
Yeah, it's right here.
And we'll show it on screen.
Right here.
New York to the heart, but got love for all. Line die in the fire where I learned the ball.
So he played the sample, and the sample from Steely Dan, and I was just blown away. I was like, what the hell? Like, I didn't know anything about the art of sampling. I didn't know that was a thing. But yeah, man, I started from doing that. I was at the skating ring, and then I landed an internship at a radio station in New York, Power 105, and that was after I went to school for audio engineering at this cool school called IAR, Institute of Audio Research, and that was like my into the industry.
So you were in Delaware skating rink, right?
Yeah.
Let's just do a timeline, and then you went back to New York.
Yeah, when I was about 18, 19, like after high school. I wanted to do something different. At that time, living in Delaware was something I used to always go to New York anyway. I have friends and family, and New York is like hour, half, 2 hours away.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what I mean?
short drive.
It's close. So we used to go there. Even when I was a kid, my mom used to take me after school. I remember my mom picked me up from school, elementary school, on a Friday, and we would go, and she would drive to New York. We'd go to my grandmother's house, and they'll have like house parties, apartment parties, playing salsa all night. Yeah, and then like, as a kid, we passed out in one of the bedrooms on top of the jackets.
Every Latin kid has a story like that.
So yeah, so that's kind of like where love of different types of music and the Latin culture really was birthed. But yeah, like after high school, I had found this school in New York that was kind of like in the realm of like what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn how to produce music, and I kind of just wanted to learn everything about audio. Like the school was really dope. It was something that they taught you all aspects from the beginning of how, you know, splicing tape and all those things to the modern things of Pro Tools, and even Ableton. That's kind of when Ableton first kind of started. But yeah, man, they taught you stuff how to be an engineer behind the artist aspect, also live sound, like concerts and arenas and things like that.
And do you think that that's made you a better artist now? 'Cause
absolutely.
You're more multifaceted now.
Yeah,
right?
and if you notice, I'm always like, I know how to dissect audio. I know how to, like, you know, that's kind of like where my essence came from, is being like an audio engineer, because that was my into the radio station, really. Because when I became an intern, I was only an intern for the street team. And if those of you don't know, the street teams of any industry is always the bottom of the barrel. So you're just passing out flyers, you're doing this event, you're literally just like I was the intern for those people. Even the street team alone is the bottom of the barrel of the.
So you were an intern.
I was the intern for the bottom.
Wow.
Bottom, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So I had to figure out my way. My way in,
bro.
My way in. Yeah, I definitely did. My way in was like, one day I was walking by this studio where the production director, Kwazi, I'm still cool with him to this day, man. I walked in one day and I was like, hey, what's up? I introduced myself. I was like, hey, I just graduated from audio engineering school. I'm an intern here I'm an intern here at Power 105. He was really cool. He was like, oh, that's what's up, man. Welcome. He was like, what did you study? And I was like, I actually studied audio engineering and Pro Tools and things like that. He was like, oh, no, what? He was like, word. He's like, I recently just got Pro Tools. I'm actually learning it myself because I was working on some other audio software at the time, and I guess all the like companies were transferring over to this new software, Pro Tools, and I'm fresh Pro Tools out. And he was like, bro, you can come here anytime you want. If you want to tell me anything, or I'm like, damn, I just want to come here and just be around. If I can
just absorb whatever was happening.
So I did that for a couple other days. There was another DJ Cut. He would do the commercials, but then he would also DJ on the weekends. He was the guy that kind of like put me into the scene. I helped him carry his crates. So one day they did like a lot of radio stations around the world. They do like mix show weekends, holiday weekends, Memorial Day weekend, Martin Luther King weekend. Really 3-day weekends. It's an excuse for DJs to play. Mm-hmm. So at that time they solicited like all the top DJs in the city. I remember DJ Sus One, who was a big DJ. He was on Connecticut at the time. SNS was another guy. And then obviously the main DJs on the radio station was Tony Touch was there, Carl Blaze, DJ Cut, Red Alert, Marley Marr, Spin Bad. Those are all the resident DJs that were already on the radio station, and then they invited a couple other DJs to do guest shows, right?
By the way, New York legends, for those of you that are internationally watching this,
that lineup
do your
was
homework
crazy.
on those DJs.
Yeah, that lineup was crazy. Yeah. And those were my teachers, you know what I'm saying? That's
crazy.
Why to this day I'm still cool with Marley Marr, Red Alert, Tony Touch. You see me and Tony Touch are still mad cool. Like, I don't know if it was SNS, I don't know if it was, not Sus One, but somebody else, one of the guest DJs, played a mix and it had curse words on it. And in radio, you can't have no curse words, at least like local radio. On Sirius satellite radio,
everything has to be edited.
Has to be
before
clean.
It goes on air.
It has to, and there's clean versions, you know what I'm saying? So I get a phone call. Yanni, can you give us a mix right now? Because we need like an hour. And I'm like, what? Hell yeah. Like, and one thing I always say, and this was actually a quote that I remember back in the day, success is when preparation meets opportunity. And that's something, man, that like I stayed ready. And that's like another quote, you stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So I did a pre-recorded mix, I sent it in right away.
It's probably less pressure for you.
Yeah, because if I needed to if I messed up, or I could edit it real quick or whatever. Right. Sent the mix in, it aired. On Monday morning, I get a call from Nadine. Nadine was like, I don't know what it was. She was like, all weekend we have all these DJs, but all I'm hearing is, who is this guy, DJ Yanni and DJ Sus One? Because y'all two mixes were the best mixes. Out of all the DJs that played that mix show weekend, they were the best mixes.
Wow.
Months later, there was a tragedy that happened with one of the main DJs at the time was Carl Blaze. He was murdered. And he had mix shows all week. He had a huge mix show on Saturday for like 2 or 3 hours. And for the first few weeks, they were playing old mixes of him. And to the point where it was like they're running out of mixes. And I get a call from Nadine, like listen, obviously we all know it's a sad story with Carl Blaze, but we need to fill this slot. We don't have nobody else to fill this slot. Would you be down to do the mix show with Sus One? And I was like, holy shit, that was like my dream. That was the dream I had as a kid, from DJing in my living room or DJing these little parties, listening to the radio in Philly, because those are the guys I used to listen to all the time, obviously, and then even like Funk Flex and DJ Enough and those guys from Hot 97. This was like it. This was my shot.
So through tragedy, an opportunity came a knocking.
Yeah, that was the beginning of my DJ Yanni radio career. And it was also the beginning of the DJ Yanni club DJ career, because
whereas you have to transition now from being a radio DJ to a club DJ. So how did that happen?
Yeah, and it's not the same, because at that time I wasn't DJing in the clubs in New York. I wasn't able to. Like, nobody knew who I was. And I'm just...
You gotta tell the story about your first club gig.
Oh, man.
That's a great story.
Yeah,
Come on,
it's just funny. So well, first of all, I did the DJ evolution, or DJ, like I evolved as a DJ backwards from the typical New York City DJ, because in New York, if you were on the radio, you were one of the top DJs in New York City, already in the club scene. That's why you heard DJ Camilo, Mr. C, rest in peace, Jazzy
Funk
Joyce.
Flex.
I remember Jazzy Joyce. Funk Flex was my idol at the time. You know what I mean? Like his legendary mixes, and I used to listen to these guys religiously, and I would go to the clubs and then like a DJ Camilo, who, at that time, he was like an urban Latin DJ. For him to play
Colombia.
Yeah, for him to play an urban style within the Latin scene, that's the first time I've ever seen that or experienced that. Also Enough. It was dope, and that's where I learned the art of party rocking, how to use your voice and your vocals as a transitional tool at times as a DJ. Sometimes now, a lot of times DJs, we have this thing called the computer now. You can play sound effects, you do all this crazy shit, and they OD sometimes.
With the bombs and the lasers.
Yeah, where back in the day, it was just like you actually had to mix clean. You actually had to do a clean mix. You actually had to like use your vocal as a. I remember one time, I think I was listening to Jazzy Joyce at the time, right? And I think she was on the radio, and I remember hearing her transition. And this was a Kid Capri style too, but the first time I really like studied it was I was listening to radio, and I heard how she was transitioning to a song, using her vocal, and then going right to another song. And for me, Kid Capri was probably the king of this style. It was basically he would sing the song or say something that was within the song energy, and then before you knew it, you was already in another song, and that transition was so smooth, whether what he said, how he sang it, whatever, and boom, you're in another song, and I was like, holy shit, this is dope. And remember, like I came from a technical aspect of it, so I learned that scratching and turntablist shit was cool, but sometimes it doesn't translate well in the club. So my style was, I'm gonna be able to use my turntablist stuff, but I'm also gonna learn how to use my voice and actually learn how to party rock, format the night, and especially as an open format DJ, format the night. I like take them up on a journey, take them up and down. You know what I mean? Whether it's house music to reggae music, house music to R&B, hip hop to R&B, whatever it is, make it make sense and just program a whole night that way. And that was over time.
But that's not how it went the first time, right? Let's go back to that first gig.
He was like,
I keep bringing it back.
I keep bringing it back. Let's talk about. All right, so the first time I had all that shit I just said, I didn't know how to do none of that shit.
Right.
Basically, I was so green. I had already been on the radio, and the radio was cool at the time because, you're in a room and you're just DJing in front of whoever the board operator is. Mm-hmm. Or if you're pre-recording, you're pre-recording from your house, and if you mess up, you could edit it and put it on the radio.
Sure.
The club is not that. The club was not that, and that's when I remember, I will never forget this. My old barber, Rich the barber, he got me to a club, and I'm like, this is my first club gig, and I'm thinking like I'm on the radio, I'm hot. You know what I mean? No, I'm not hot. It's not hot. So this club particularly had multiple rooms. There was like a reggae room, a hip hop room, a house room, whatever, and then like an open format room, and then I was all the way in the back, and this guy, just as a solid for Rich, because I was his friend, he was like, yo, I got you a gig with my boy, and I think it was an Asian party. You know how in New York is like Latin party, Asian party, like all types of parties. Yeah. Depending on the music. So the Asian parties there was like, they like all type of music. It's really open format. So I get there, I set up, the guys DJing, and this is when Serato first started. It was Scratch Live back then. So I had my big ass Dell laptop. It's like fucking this big. I popped it open, and this is a set that I was practicing in my head. I'm mad nervous, and it was a huge crowd. And this is a term that we always use as DJs for DJs who don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But I Moses the night. It was Moses, meaning Moses when you part the Red Sea.
Parted the crowd,
bro. Literally not. I can't even remember. It was like minutes within the set. Maybe 20 minutes within the set. Honestly, it could have been an hour, but it felt like 2 minutes into the set, the whole crowd said,
oh man, those are the worst.
And remember, there's multiple rooms, so they just went to other rooms, and to the point where I'm like, holy shit, like I just
what a blow to the ego, right?
I got too comfortable, and now to this day, you know me, before any gig, an hour or two before the show, I'm looking at my music, I'm going through everything, I'm downloading new music. I like to do that before the show because it's fresh in my memory, and I don't forget songs. I have a folder that says "Do not forget."
Do not forget. He always has that folder.
And there's I have a thing, and that's because of this one day in San Diego. I will never forget the DJ twins that I know. They used to book me all the time at this club, Sevilla. And I would go there and kill this party. And this one time, I just lose the crowd and I lose the energy to the point where like, the DJs didn't want to take me off because they had so much respect for me. They was like, yo, Yanni, you good, bro? And I'm like, yeah. And I started to get like, holy shit.
Your head wasn't in the game.
Anxiety. I'm like, what is this? This is not me.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, all I could think of, I was like, damn, I didn't prep. I didn't prep for this show. I thought I had it in the bag. I got too comfortable. I'm like, I did this club a million times. I could do it again. And nah, like I wasn't mentally there. And that one time, that was years ago, but now to the point to like, you see me now, I'm so on point when it comes to the music and and setting that up.
But out of all these shows,
TV show too.
What was the most memorable and why?
Damn.
I know that's a tough question because I know DJs get asked that all the time.
Yeah.
But there has to be like one show somewhere in the world that you played, because you played all over the world. But where is that show and why was it so important to you? Man,
I can't. It's hard to pinpoint one. There's just moments, like obviously the first time I touched the New York City airways, that was a memorable. It was like milestones, right? The first time I touched international soil in like Paris, France, with Nina Sky, that was a memorable one. You know what I mean? The Red Hot Chili Peppers, you know, me opening. I didn't realize how iconic it was until they started playing, until I was done, and I was like, I just opened up for these guys. It was just me and then them.
How did you get on TV?
At that time, I had already been on radio. I had been on multiple radio stations. I was on Power 105, and then I had multiple radio jobs. Like I was a production director, a coordinator for Univision Radio, like I at the time.
Wow.
And then I saw something on TV. It was Master of the Mix. It was by BET, sponsored by Smirnoff. And it was basically the first ever TV show that was like an American Idol for DJs. And I remember I was there from 6 a.m. to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I think they saw me at like 3 o'clock.
Wow.
I went up, I made sure I stood out, and then I got the call, and I'm like, yo, you're on the show. Out of a couple thousand DJs.
That's insane.
Maybe a couple hundred, maybe 1,000, I don't know. And then I made it on the show. They flew me out to LA for a month. Then they had to air the show because the finale, still nobody knew who won. The finale had to be won by viewer vote. And I went through the whole show. I never got eliminated. And then it was just 3 contestants at the end, me, DJ P, DJ M Squared,
so
and me.
You were in the final 3?
I was the final 3.
Wow.
And they say I lost because of a viewer vote.
Yanni, you know, his creativity definitely said it all. I like the way he used the, you're losing, pointing over at Jameson. You know, that was dope.
But the director of the show at the time was like, listen, Yanni, if you ask me, you won. All over the world, people who saw clips of that show or saw the whole show was like, yo, Yanni, you got robbed. Or bro, you were my favorite DJ. Or
all the real ones knew.
Every time. Even to this day, I still get some stuff from people who seen that show.
You mentioned LA. How did you end up in LA and how did you meet Curtis, your partner for
Breakfast in Vegas,
your other project?
So at that time, now I did the radio, and now I'm on my I don't know how many radio stations I've been on at the time, and I'm already in, say like I'm already 10, 11, maybe 10, 11 years into DJing on the radio. And I'm like, you know, I produce music too. You know, I was getting contracted to do remixes at the time, and I was starting to fall out of love of being on the radio. It felt like a job to me, and I felt like the decline. Like I felt like I hit the ceiling. I'm like, I don't like this feeling. I don't like this being like a job. I had friends in LA. I met Pooh Bear at the time. And Pooh Bear, I met him through passing. Someone was like, yo, Yanni, meet Pooh Bear. And Pooh Bear was like, yo, I heard you do electronic music. I heard you do some stuff.
By the way, for those of you that don't know, Pooh Bear is a prolific writer for Justin Bieber.
One of the
This
greatest
guy,
writers of all time.
he's incredible. This guy is like royalty.
Yeah, and the funny
that
thing
world.
is, I had no idea when I first met him.
Really?
I thought he was like, 'cause if you look at him, you don't know who he is, what's he do, nothing. And he goes, yo, if you're down, I'm about to go to the studio right now and record. And I'm like, damn, I'm just about to go to the airport right now to fly back to New York. Yeah, and I'm like, if you're serious, I'll just change my flight. He's like, I'm serious, bro. Like, and I was like, all right.
Wow.
And this is within minutes of meeting him. And I'm like, all right. He's like, all right, you can ride with me. Hop in. He had a Range Rover. I hopped in, and I'm still telling you, I had no idea who he was. Still, I had no idea his resume until we got to the studio. I had like 3 or 4 tracks. I played some in the car. He was like, "Oh, this is fire. All right, I'm gonna hop on this." And I'm thinking like, yeah, I'll send it to you, and you got. He's like, "No, I'm hopping on this today." And I'm like, really? I'm like, all right. So we get to the studio, and he does some crazy shit. I'm like, yo, who is this guy? And then we record 3 songs that night. And I'm leaving, and I'm like, I still don't know who he is. And then I get a call from the person who introduced me to him. And she goes, she was like, Yanni, are you still? I was like, yeah, we just finished, bro. I'm like, he could really sing.
You had no idea.
I had no clue. She was like, do you know who that is? She's like, Justin Bieber, Chris Brown, 112. And she started saying all his resume. I'm like, what? He was like, yeah, he wrote all them songs. And I'm like, oh, shit. And then I think that's kind of cool I met him like that, because a lot of people meet him and they put him on this pedestal and they treat him a certain way. So it was really cool and genuine the way I met him, because I really didn't know him.
He probably felt your energy too.
Yeah, and I'm like, yo, this guy's just super talented. And then from there, we did a whole album together. From like within the next few weeks, we recorded a whole album together.
You guys started a side project, right?
Yeah, it was called Thugtronic. And we went from LA to New York, and then we went to Toronto to meet Fito Blanco. We did some Latin songs. And then I remember him telling me, we put him on the phone with J Balvin, and he was talking to J Balvin, and he was telling me, he was like, Jan, I got it. I said, I got an American Grammy. He's like, my next goal is to get a Latin Grammy. And bro, years later, with J Balvin and Adhia, and I think another album, he got his Latin Grammy.
Wow.
And I remember him telling me that. But and at that time, Justin Bieber was working on another album, and I was flying back and forth to New York, so I wasn't able to be in LA a lot, and I missed out on some opportunities because I wasn't in the room with him where I could have been if I was there. And I was just like, you know what? I think I'm gonna leave this radio thing alone. I hit my cap, and I think I want to be a professional producer. I wanted to put my energy into that. So I ended up moving to LA. Moved to LA, and right before I was leaving LA, I had met this guy who had this girl as a artist, and they came to my studio in New Jersey at the time. And he was like, bro, I love your style. He's like, I manage these 2 producers named the Young Boys that I think if I introduce you guys will hit it off, because you guys have a very similar, eclectic, different type of style. And I was like, all right, word. He put us on a group chat, and Kurt was the one who started talking to me, and I met with Kurt, come to the studio. And basically, Kurt was already this renowned producer, produced for a bunch of different artists, and had like accolades, like all types of stuff, just as equivalent as me, but on the production aspect. And I'm already like, as a DJ aspect. So for him, he was like, I want to be more of a DJ, and me, I was like, I want to be more of a producer.
Oh, so it was kind of like the perfect storm.
Yeah, we both wanted what each other had, in a sense. Pause. And we came together. He already had the name Breakfast in Vegas, and I'm like, yo, I kind of fuck with that. Let's do it. And I moved to LA, and then he started coming to LA more. We started working, and until he actually moved. And then the rest is history, man. We started the #1, the first ever huge Latin urban party in Hollywood at Playhouse, and that shit was monumental. That was huge. That's when the reggaeton bubble came back again, since the 2008 bubble, where in LA, that's when Bad Bunny started popping off. This was like 2000 and like.
And you guys made a song with Bad Bunny.
Yeah, we made a song with Bad Bunny, and yeah, man, we were. It's funny because going back to what we were saying before, I was getting away from the Latin stuff, and then here
it always came back.
Here was
somehow.
like, yo, if we do Latin, and that's when we started doing Afro-Latin music there, because we were like, we don't want to just be another reggaeton producers.
Right.
So we started doing. That's why we linked up with Johnny the Voice, and we did a couple like urban Afro Latin songs that really did really well, and then even Fuego, and then we started becoming known for that sound. And then when I came to Colombia around COVID, I discovered this whole Afro-Latin scene that was already been here. Like Cartagena, you know, the Barranquilla, the Pacific side, Chocó, it's like there's a whole urban Afro-Latin world musically that they're killing it. And then I was telling Kurt, yo, we gotta come out here. And that's how we ended up out here. And then after that, that's kind of where me and you been at that,
Right.
at that point.
So I think this is like the halfway point now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
I knew of Yanni through the radio.
Yeah.
I thought Yanni was like some like European guy.
Yeah, or Greek. People always
Yeah, I was like
Greek
Yanni,
name.
and then when we actually met, well, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I always thought he was like some European DJ.
So now that was my story up until this. It's like one of those movies that one of the lead people, you see their fucking backstory up until this moment.
Right.
And now boom, I meet this guy that I knew him through Fight Club, and I knew him because I used to play his stuff on the radio, and he knew me only because he used to hear me on the radio, and that's how we were. And then we met, boom, we hit it off. It was just so crazy how like our backgrounds was very similar, and not just that, not just the Columbia, New York, Queens, all that stuff. It was also the matter of the fact that musically we were both on this path of like, yo, we did all this other shit
You were
in our
in sync.
lives. We did all this other shit, and for some reason, we are on this Afro-Latin house vibe right now, and we were both like, we wanted to do this something new that was completely separate. For me, it's completely separate from DJ, separate from Breakfast in Vegas, and for him too. And it was just like, yo, let's try to do this thing, and boom, now enter the next lead of the movie.
This is like a Tarantino movie.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
It's like moving
You heard
vignettes.
Yeah.
My vignette now. Sav. Like the screen goes
Yeah.
black.
So all right. So you saw her, my kind of upbringing, how I started, and a little bit of like, you know, of my story and how I got to where we're at today. What about you? So tell me how did Sav? All I know that I want to know. Because all I hear whenever I talk to Sav, or when I see Sav in his element or around people that know him from years, all I hear is Sazonbuya, Mumaton, and then how that evolved into Fight Club and later on. So let them hear some of that stuff.
Well, I'll run it back to, I don't have a similar story to you in the sense, oh, by the way, we're both Tauruses too. We left that part out. I don't have a similar story to you in the sense that I've always loved music, right? Like same as you. Our parents would always play Latin music at the parties, house parties. You know, I grew up with cumbia, with salsa, vallenato. I mean, you name it, whatever kind of Colombian music was around in the 80s and 90s, I was exposed to it. And obviously being in New York, I grew up with hip hop, reggae, all these different genres, right? But I always loved film. Film was always like my first passion. And it's funny because I was watching, I'll even show a clip. I was going back to my old VHS tapes.
Okay.
And there's a clip of me like holding like a lunchbox. And I'm like pretending
it's a camera?
It's a camera.
Oh, that's dope.
I was like 4.
Oh, that's dope.
So I think my mom even said it. She said, I've always loved film. I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. When I got my hands on my grandmother's VHS camera, I was always recording my cousins at house parties.
Nice.
Writing scripts for them. It was always in my nature. So music was always secondary. It was just a very important part of my life.
Right.
But it was never at the forefront like it was for you. Like I didn't know I was gonna become a DJ.
Yeah.
It was never.
That's cool. I think there's a lot of people like that though, that they discovered the DJ passion for DJing later on in life. For me, it was like right away. As soon as I saw it as a kid.
Like you knew.
Yeah, I knew right away.
I want to do this.
Yeah.
Like I want turntables. I want to be a DJ. I never knew. Like I never knew.
So how did it go from the filmmaker to like DJ producer?
For me, I think it started happening around 2000. I'm gonna say 2008.
Really?
When I started going to Webster Hall.
Oh, okay.
I was at
legendary. What do they call it? It's a not a monument. What's it's a landmark. It's a New York City landmark where they can never tear this building down.
Landmark. It's been around since like late 1800s, I believe.
Bro,
it used to be an opera house.
It's definitely some legendary nights, but yeah, Webster Hall it's legendary.
So I had always gone clubbing to Webster Hall, but I started noticing that electronic music was becoming super popular, and I was like, oh man, like I never like cared for electronic music. I knew about the Chemical Brothers, I knew about Daft Punk,
of course,
but I never really dived into it. Like I didn't really know the subgenres. I didn't know. So I was going to this party called Girls and Boys, and it was every Friday night, and it was the birth of it's called Blog House, the genre. It was like that era where blogs were like permeating this kind of music, where it was like hard electro music. And it was like Steve Aoki, Bloody Beetroots, Mastercraft. You know, it was like hard electronic music, Justice. So it was like this interesting time because we didn't have Apple Music, we didn't have Spotify, we didn't have people curating this music. It was just people, ordinary people.
What was the Hype Machine?
Hype Machine was the mecca. Like
I used to download. That was like the SoundCloud. That's where you go to find some crazy unofficial remixes and shit.
Yep.
And if your stuff was on there, you were hot.
You were hot. You were hot.
Yeah, I remember that.
and I started. I was always on Hype Machine too. And I remember that time very fondly because at the time I was working as a substitute teacher for the Board of Ed while still going to college. I was going to Queens College and working at Townsend Harris High School, which was connected to Queens College. And during my lunch breaks, I would just go on Hype Machine. I would go on the blogs, Hipster Runoff, and I would read about this music scene that was happening in LA, France, Canada, and it was happening in New York too. And I was like, you know, I need to make film again, right? Because for a while I had given up. I had made 2 independent feature films in college, and they didn't really go anywhere. And I was kind of like bummed, you know? I was like, damn, my career didn't take off. Now I'm just like a substitute teacher.
Wait. Oh, yeah. So that's another thing that I know you're going to talk about, but where was this? Because I don't know if you guys know, but he was with Skrillex.
Oh, yeah, that happens.
I mean,
way later. Yeah.
Okay, but that was like, but then you got in through your filmmaking abilities, I guess, right?
So what happened was I'm working at this high school and still going to college.
As a teacher?
As a substitute teacher.
Oh, shit. What were you teaching?
I started off working with children that have autism.
Oh, wow.
I was a para.
Okay.
And then I moved my way up into individual students, and then I became a substitute teacher.
That's crazy.
For English.
Imagine this guy.
I was a teacher. And prior to that job,
see him being teacher, and then another clip of him jumping off the stage off of like
wild it out. But Yanni, before I was a teacher, I was a DJ at a strip club.
Oh, I DJ'd there too. Scandals.
Shout out to Scandals, Henry.
That's another thing that was crazy. We were like, yo, you DJ at Scandals? So did I. Like,
crazy.
That's just funny.
Crazy. And that's where I learned to project. Like, that's where my voice.
Destiny to the stage.
Gemini to the stage. Gemini to the stage. But that's also where I learned to DJ multiple genres. Because, as you know, all the girls there are from different parts of the world. Because we're in New York.
We got like Russians, Italians.
The Russians, they were like, can you play some hard techno? And I was like, I had to look up techno music.
Yeah, bro.
Destiny would come to me. You need to play some reggae. And I was like, all right, I got you, reggae. You know, so I learned about all these genres through those girls. So it was I mentioned the strip club thing not to like give it a comedic beat, but it was a really interesting learning experience for me as a DJ.
I definitely can relate to that because I did that too. I remember thinking like, damn, I can't really do my thing because one person wants to hear a rock song, this girl wants to hear a reggae song, another a dance record, and it's like you can't really like DJ. You're really just playing records for the girls that are working
for hours.
Yeah,
like 8 hours.
And there's no
standing up.
Yeah,
DJing.
And at the end of the day, the guys don't care what music is playing.
No, it's for the girls.
It's for the girls.
But I'm getting a little sidetracked.
No, that's a cool little thing. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that too, as being a stripper DJ.
Can they?
I mean, I'm sure, yeah.
But anyways, after that experience at the strip club, I became a substitute teacher. And again, I was going to college, and I was like, I have that itch to go back to film. So while I was going to Webster Hall every Friday, literally almost every Friday, religiously, I was like, you know what? I have this hunch that this music is going to be the next big thing. So I said to myself, I'm gonna document this. I'm gonna make a movie about this.
What music? The electronic music?
Electronic music.
Okay. Yeah.
I saw it happening,
That's
Yanni. I
right.
was like, whoa.
And that's when I was on the dance station, because it was right when the EDM. That's when they even started labeling it EDM.
It wasn't even called EDM
it wasn't,
at that time.
It wasn't.
It was just electro or techno, whatever they called it. So I hit up my best friend and partner, Carmine. I made a lot of projects with him. And we had just...
From Fight Club, by the way.
So he
was a filmmaker too? Well,
he was an actor. He was an actor and a writer.
It makes sense.
Still is.
Now you guys see, the Fight Club stuff, and it's like...
Everything makes sense.
It does.
When you
really
hear
does.
the whole
When I see the videos
story.
and stuff, it's dope.
So I hit him up and I was like, Carmine, I want to make this documentary about electronic music. You have a camera, because we had just made a film for one of his projects. I said, can I borrow your camera? Which, by the way, was humongous. It was a VX2100 Sony camera. I'm gonna flash it on screen. It was a huge camera, and I carried it in a silver aluminum case that looked like it was a bomb. Like it was a huge silver case. Like a James Bond villain would carry this case. And I would bring this to the club. And at the time I was reading this book called The Secret.
Okay.
That my dad put me onto.
Like the art of like manifestation and stuff.
Exactly.
Like that, yeah.
So I said, if I'm gonna make this a reality, I'm gonna have to believe that this is already happening. So I convinced my mind to think that this project was already, a thing. It was already being made and it was already coming out. So I was on the blog for the Hipster Runoff, and this guy called Carl's, he would write these blog posts, and he said the Electro Wars are coming, or something to that effect. And I said, that's a dope name for a movie about electronic music. So I
never knew that. That's the first time I heard that.
I took it. And
Electro Wars.
The Electro Wars. I called it that, and I went to the club. Mastercraft was playing that night, and I went in with this silver aluminum case, and I said, hey, I'm making this documentary. It's called The Electro Wars. Catherine from Biz 3, because I wasn't dumb either. I did my research before I went to the club. I looked up the publicist. I said, Catherine from Biz 3 approved my interview with Mastercraft tonight. And
you just made that up?
I believed it a lie. I believed it was approved. I believed that.
I love that.
And it got me in the club.
I'll tell you one thing,
got me in the
bro.
club.
This guy right here, I don't know. This guy can get in any festival, any club,
any stage,
any country, any city, better than anybody I ever known in my life. This guy, I'm like, yo, we don't have tickets. He's like, no, I got you. And out of nowhere, he's like, yo, Jan, come to the back. I'm like, what?
Let's go backstage.
Yeah, we got backstage patches. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? Like, yo, this guy, that's his
gift the gab, man. Gift the gab.
He definitely has a skill.
Thank you,
That's
Yanni.
funny.
Appreciate that.
So okay, but at this time, at this time, you weren't even a DJ producer yet.
I was DJing. I had learned to DJ.
Other than like the
but I wasn't a producer.
Stuff or like
definitely wasn't a producer.
Okay.
No, I had DJ'd like basement parties.
Okay.
Birthdays, things like that, but never clubs.
Okay.
Other than the strip club.
Yeah.
But never like a club gig.
Okay,
right?
so you get to this, and then you interviewed them. That was your first interview.
Mastercraft actually denied the interview when I got in.
Oh.
But I recorded them on stage, playing. And at the time, nobody was doing that because there weren't even DSLR cameras at the time. And back then, we had Nokias.
Oh, that's interesting.
We had Razors.
So you got footage that nobody even had.
Nobody had this footage.
That's crazy. It's crazy to think, because now there's no festival, there's no event, there's no even club without somebody filming it.
Exactly.
So that's kind of crazy that to think that there was a time that nobody filmed shit.
Nobody filmed anything.
Crazy.
And if they did, it looked like it was Sean a Potato.
Yeah.
It was horrible. So I took the footage from that night, and I went to the real publicist that I had mentioned, and I said, I'm making this documentary. And I got lucky one night with Steve Aoki.
Okay.
Because
I have a Steve Aoki story, but go ahead.
The publicists were still denying interviews for me because I never had an interview. I never had a tangible interview on video to show them.
Yeah.
So I kept believing that I was making this movie, and I went back to Webster Hall, and I said I was doing an interview with Steve. Steve gave me the interview. Aoki. He was the first artist to give me the interview.
Oh, wow.
And that interview, I'm literally shooting it and interviewing him.
And at that time, he was already had his records that were going big.
In that world.
In the electronic
He was
world.
not the Steve Aoki you know today, where he's throwing cakes at people, playing festivals for hundreds and thousands of people. He was this underground DJ from LA who would play small bars. So Steve gave me that interview, and then I had something tangible to take to the publicist, and then I was able. After that, it snowballed.
So you kept using all that information or footage or saying like, yo, I'm building this stuff.
I have this documentary I'm working on it, and I have Steve Aoki.
Okay,
that got me to A-Track. That got me to Chromeo. That got me to, honestly, man, it was like everyone at that point. Like LMFAO was huge. I got them. I got Pitbull, who was doing house music. Little John. I had him in there. It was an experience that I'll never forget, because I never thought that if you really manifest a reality that could actually happen.
Right.
You know, this book really kind of showed me the way, and
it's manifesting.
And I still carry that with me till this day. You know, because sometimes I think you get jaded as you get older, and I was in my 20s. So I was very optimistic about life, and I had this zest for life. I was like, I could do anything. You know how it is. You're like, I could do anything. I could take on any challenge. Now, you know, I'm kind of like, all right, I got to be a little bit more precautious because I'm older. It's not the same.
A little bit more like strategic, a little bit more like, I say now we're a little bit more, I don't know, like we do things purposely as opposed to like blind eye. We'll go in and see whatever happens.
Less renegade.
Yeah.
It's more like there's a method to the madness.
Yeah, now it's definitely a method to the madness.
But that documentary was, I made a trailer for it, right? But that documentary was a stepping stone for me, and it got my foot in the door into the music industry, because now I'm exposed to all these DJs and I'm around all these people that are important. And what really helped was when I posted it on Kanye's blog.
Okay.
And because Kanye was mentioned a lot, because Kanye at the time
had
just worked with Daft Punk.
He was doing all types of stuff.
This was before that. This is when he worked with Daft Punk, and he did Harder. He did Stronger.
Okay,
And he sampled Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger.
Okay.
So people mentioned him, and A-Track was his DJ at that time.
Yeah.
And he's mentioned a lot, so I kind of like made him a focal point in the trailer. Mm-hmm. And he loved that, of course, because Kanye loves when people talk about him. So he reposted it on his blog. And that got thousands of views. Like, I got like 20,000 plays on YouTube in like 24 hours.
Nice.
So that really helped me get the bigger artists like Pitbull and all these people. After I put out the film, I screened it in several cities globally. I had it in the Stockholm Film Festival. I had it in Amsterdam Film Festival. That was the first time I had traveled overseas. I had never been overseas.
So what was it? Can you pinpoint the time when you were like, I want to produce now? Like, let me try this producing thing?
So that happened when I screened the movie, and it was this big thing for me, right? Everybody knew me through this movie. Skrillex hit me up.
Oh, okay.
He saw there was a trailer for the sequel. And when I premiered it in LA, I guess he was at the premiere.
Okay.
Or he had heard of it. I think he was at the premiere. He said he wanted to be in the sequel.
Okay.
And
that's when he was big. That was dubstep Skrillex.
This was 2011.
Okay.
I premiered the movie in 2010. So 2011, the EDM boom is happening.
Started, yep.
So what I had predicted was actually happening now.
Okay.
And now all of a sudden, labels are hitting me up for the sequel. They're like, you got to interview this person. You got to interview that person. David Guetta was scheduled. Avicii, all these people, and I'm like, this isn't the movie I want to make. I don't want to make this movie, but you know what? Whatever. I'm young and I'm getting these offers.
Right.
I'm like, why not? Whatever. So Skrillex reaches out and he's like, I want to be in your next movie. I'm going to be in New York. That's a really long story. I'm not going to get into the whole thing.
Okay.
Long story short, Skrillex and I become good friends. And he comes to New York, we hang out. He's broke. He opens for Atari Teenage Riot at Gramercy Theater for like 20 people. He was not the Skrillex we all know today. This guy was virtually unknown. And then he went to the back and he played us his EP, for his first EP, Scary Monsters.
Okay.
Or I think that was his second EP. He played it and he was like, this is going to come out next month. And he was like, what do you guys think of this? Bro, I knew. I looked at my friends. I was like, this is going to change the whole industry.
Wow.
I said, Skrill, whatever you need, I'm on board.
That's fire.
He said, I want you to document the rise of my career. Would you guys be down for that? I said, sure. So we literally followed him on the East Coast only. We followed him to all these shows in Maryland and Boston, everywhere he played on the East Coast. We followed him. And we documented his whole journey into the Skrillex we all know and love. For 2 years I did that.
Oh, damn.
I met Zed, who was also coming up at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Porter, Robinson. Bro, who didn't I meet? Like, Skrillex became this huge thing, and I was a part of that whole thing. And I got exposed to music through him, because when I was on tour with him, the summer of 2011, he was always making music in the back of the bus. So I was watching him on Ableton. This guy's a genius. This guy's doing stuff that...
He's a mad scientist.
He actually encouraged me, because I was telling him, I was like, Skrill, I want to do something with Latin music. I want to do something that hasn't been done before. And he's like, you should do it. Because that's the kind of person he is. He's like, you should do it. You should try it. Learn how to... Yeah, man, just do it. Take the music you love and make it to something new. And at the time, Moombahton was just starting. Dave Nada had just created.
Is that when Dylan Francis was starting to pop? Because he started doing Moombahton too.
This was around that time. Moonchi, Dylan.
Moonchi. So is that how Sasombuya was birthed?
So what happened was, when I premiered the Electro Wars, Mr. Vega, that's his producer alias, his name is Josh, he came to the premiere and we became friends.
Okay.
And I had been a fan of his music. And I met him at a Starbucks once. And I was already touring with Skrillex at the time. And I was like, Josh, I think we should start a project, because I don't know how to make music, but you know how to make music. Let's take Latin sounds and mix it with like electronic elements. And he was like, have you ever heard of this genre called Moombahton? They're already kind of doing that. And I was like, really? So I look into it, and I hear about Dave Nada and Moonchi, and I heard the music. I was like, okay, let's do this. This is exactly what I was thinking. I was cooking, and I had a Sazon Goya packet. So I was like, Sazon Buya. Buya means noise, so it's noise with flavor.
Okay.
And we're Sazon Buya. I called Josh. I go, we're Sazon Buya. He's like, bro, whatever you want. let's go. Let's do it.
I like that.
And the rest is history. You know, Skrillex, he put up our first music video. I made the video, of course.
Yeah.
And then he put it on his Facebook, and then everybody found out who we were after that.
So how long from there, and why or how you went from Sasombuya to Fight Club?
Well, Sasombuya ended in 2012.
Okay.
During Miami Music Week. It was very tragic. It was really like, don't want to get into that whole thing because I don't want to revisit that. It was a very sad moment.
Okay.
There was some outside interference by people that shouldn't have been involved, and I take full responsibility for that. And we broke up. And then Mysterio and I, because Sasombuya wasn't just Josh and I. Later we incorporated Carmine.
Oh, I didn't know
into the project.
Oh, so he was a part of Sasombuya too.
He was Mysterio, this masked hype man who never revealed his identity.
So you just carried that over into Fight Club.
So that's what happened. We brought him in, and he was the hype man. But when Josh and I ended the project, Mysterio and I were like, okay, what do we do now? Josh kept doing his own thing, and then we were like in limbo. I didn't know how to make music.
Oh,
I had just watched Skrillex and learned things from Zed and all these people, but I never really implemented it.
Oh shit! Okay.
And with Josh, I watched him work on FL Studio. He taught me a lot just by sitting with him, and I was like, okay, that's how you do that. Okay, so
that's interesting. I would not know that. That's how you learn.
I learned through different people, and then I went on YouTube tutorials, and then I learned from a lot of YouTube tutorials, and then I took a year to really like hone in on making music.
Yeah.
And literally day and night for a whole year, I was just eating like cup of noodles on YouTube, on FL, and I learned how to produce music. And I was really bad at it still. But I said to Carmine, Mysterio, I said, bro, we need to do something because, you know, we were such a big thing. Sasombuya was a big thing. We were on Lotto commercials. We were, you know, touring with Skrillex. We played a few shows with him. And we were very influential in Moombahton music, the genre. But now we're just like left in limbo. We're like, what the hell are we going to do? So we started Fight Club.
Okay.
And I made a song with a more seasoned producer called Air Atlantica.
Okay.
It was called Shout That. And it came out on Afrojack's label, which at the time was part of Spinnin'.
Yeah.
And Afrojack and I met through Electro Wars.
Oh, okay.
But Afrojack had blown up as well. He
Yeah,
had become
yeah.
a megastar, and we kept in touch. And I said, "Listen, Afrojack, I got this new project. It's called Fight Club. Listen to this song. Tell me what you think." And he hits me up one day through email. He's like, "Here's what I think," and he sends me a clip of him playing it at Tomorrowland with Nicky Romero and David
Oh.
Guetta back to back.
That's fire.
And he's like, "I want to sign it." So he kickstarted our career as Fight Club.
Nice.
Shout outs to Afrojack because he
I
really
didn't know
did.
that. That's dope.
Yeah, Afrojack was the one that started our career, and then, you know, we became what we are today. You know, we did global bass music. We mixed Bali funk, jungle terror, which was
Yeah.
another genre. We mixed all these elements with Latin, but still global electronic sounds. And it was always hard. It was always like,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I
EDM.
always used to play you guys' music and edits and stuff like that on the radio.
but that's how I met Yanni, because I was working on Fight Club, and at the time it was the pandemic, and I was like, man, I really want to scale it down. Like I've been playing festivals around the world,
Yeah.
playing hard music.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I want to go back to the roots of like
Yeah.
what I love, which was tribal,
Sexy vibes.
Yeah.
And then now, and then like for the first year, I would say our first year was more like our experimental year. Like remember we started with the Pepa's Afro bass, and then we started doing different things. And then we started the live streams here in the studio. And then it transitioned into the clubs, and then we started doing hunglas in the clubs. And I think that once we started doing more and more stuff, and then obviously we were ahead of this Afro house wave, and then now the Afro house wave is kind of like hitting this plateau where it's kind of like a certain type of Afro. Because right now when you Google Afro house, it's like all types of subgenres within this Afro melodic, Afro tech, Afro all this stuff, and then there's the cane music type Afro. For us, I would say we stay true to our sound. Our sound is very Afro house, but also Afro Latin, tribal, and sexy, man. So like, and then now, like our most viral. I mean, I could say even more viral than anything DJ Yanni and even Breakfast in Vegas has ever put out. We've had like was one of our first Instagram reels that's almost at 1 million. Streams right now on the reel. Yeah, and I'm like, yo, this, and then we started putting out more, and it's like, okay, this is what the people want from us. This is like something fresh that's a part of, separate from like what's happening all over, where it's like that straight Afro, different type of crazy.
I call
Afro
it
house.
burner Afro house, which is like
Yeah.
burner scene, meaning like people that go to Burning Man, people
Yeah,
that go to
yeah.
like, really like interesting, like mellow electronic elements. And that's what kind of keen music is, right?
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
very
yeah.
chill, it's more ambient, it's more relaxed.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know, I've seen some of their stuff. Some of the stuff is cool, and even like, like Hugo or Hugel or whatever you want to call him. Like he's dabbled into that stuff. I would say like he's definitely more of the experimental stuff, where he'll like put some like Venezuelan style Afro house. He'll put some of the melodic tech. He'll even do some tech house, and then now some Latin house. So I think for us now, finding our sound and seeing like we do more Afro Latin. I would say we'll do that's kind of really more towards that, as well as tribal, like tribal house. But this is stuff that within him and I used to play ourselves, like from Gregory Salto, Gregor, like those guys, man, and Louis Vega, even me, I was a big
Pablo Fierro,
Pablo,
Joski, Pepe
Joski,
Citarella, like
these guys have been doing it.
around.
Yeah, these guys have been
years.
doing it for way longer than us, and it's crazy now because now we have Pepe, we have songs with Pepe, and now we have releases with him. Now he's considering us as a peer, where back in the day we was like this is somebody we would have died
looking up to him.
Yeah, we looked up to this guy. So it's cool to be able to start making this music now and get accepted and from these guys that we looked up to. And
when we were starting out, man, nobody wanted to touch us.
Yeah.
People were like, Afro house.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't even a thing.
Yeah,
Was
it
that even
only
a
tech
genre?
house parties and techno.
I don't even know. It probably was, but it wasn't popular. Nobody wanted
popular.
us to play in their club, playing that kind of music. People were like, you got to play Latin tech, you got to play tech house, minimal tech. We're like, what? Like,
Yeah.
no, we want to play
And
this.
the
This
funny thing is, our
awesome.
first junglas was in LA, and LA is probably one of the I would say within those types of music scene, they're usually last to hop on that type of train. And for us to launch our jungla, that was kind of interesting.
It was a pleasure to sit down with you guys.
Yes.
Hope you guys enjoyed us talking about our past and the things that influenced us to be the DJs and producers that we
Absolutely.
are today. But now you know a little bit more about who we were before this
I also
project.
did want to add, remember we wanted to talk about, you was going to remind me, but the heavy hitters. I was able to become a heavy hitter in 2012. This is after the TV show where I was grinding, and the heavy hitters is basically like a brotherhood. It's a DJ crew from around the world. It's basically some of the best and biggest DJs from every major city around the world, from Tokyo to LA to Belgium to all over, Thailand. And for me, I was able to become a member in 2012. And it was basically, I remember one time when I was in school at the Institute of Audio Research, and DJ Enough came, and he came, and I was doing like a presentation, and he was like dope. He was like, bro, you're dope, man. And then I remember leaving, and he basically was talking about his story on the radio, and me talking about radio production and music production. And before I left, I was like, yo, Enough, if you ever, have any like room for heavy hitters one day, I would love to be a part of it. And he just kind of like laughed it off. And it's like, this was like, I want to say 5 years prior to actually me, maybe even 6 or 7, I don't know, of me becoming a heavy hitter. But it was basically me grinding out and just, having that manifestation. That was a milestone I wanted to achieve in my life, and my goal. And now I can say I'm a proud member of the heavy hitter crew. So
Shout out to the heavy hitters, man.
yeah, man.